What is up, survivors? We're back with another 101. This one is going to be going over the Genesis 2 Engrams, what they do. I know we're a little late to this, but we had a couple of other 101s I wanted to get done first, but here we are to talk about everything Genesis 2 related. So, again, the Engrams that we're going to go over are specifically related to Genesis 2 and how they work generally, and then, yeah, that's pretty much it. So, what we have here is just some of the building things that you can be able to make out here. I have some things equipped on my hotbar, and then some plants and stuff like that. That's, I guess we'll get into it. So, first and foremost, the turrets are out here for a cool reason, mainly because we got added into this ammo box. So what this ammo box does is allows you to put ammunition inside of here, and what it will do is automatically distribute the ammo out to the turrets as they use the ammo, which is pretty cool. Now you have a visual indicator that you can pull up to give you a ring to show you what turrets are actually in range of it. It's got a decent range. You might have to make multiple of these if you have a really big base, obviously, but yeah, so you can disable that as well, and as you can see, it's already pulled the ammo out and distributed it to the turrets evenly. Now, the other cool thing about this is, let's say you don't want the turrets filled up all the way, you can adjust the turret reload fill cap and change it to the percentage that you want, which is kind of nice. That way they're not full all the way full if you don't want to fill them all the way up, especially when you're dealing with maybe some other modded turrets that have a huge inventory you don't necessarily want to do that with. Makes it a lot easier. This will pretty much work for anything it takes guns and bullets to arm. It's pretty self-explanatory. You just throw whatever the ammunition is inside of it, and it'll pump the ammunition out to the turrets for you. That is the ammo box. Scrolling over here, we have the tech surveillance console. This is kind of a nifty thing. I kind of like this one. So you make this console, and inside this console you make these remote cameras that take crystal electronics, element, metal, and polymer to make. So once you have one of those cameras built, and I have one chilling over here, you just place them down, and then when you place them down, they'll have a little tether run into the surveillance camera, so you can only go out so far with them. But what you can do is, well, obviously you can rename the consoles and stuff, but you can access the remote camera. It loads in the camera right here. So I'm standing on the camera, I can move it in and out. If I have different cameras, I can switch between them. The camera mode is pretty cool because you can change it to like a text or where it highlights everything for you. You have a night vision. And like you can basically everything the tech helmet does, right? So you can toggle the night vision on and off, and you know, have it target creatures for you and stuff. So pretty cool. Spacebar again taking me out of there, but it'll have all the controls up there depending on what you're trying to do. Sorry, spacebar is the camera list, so you actually have, it'll list all the cameras for you. For me, for PC anyway, and then the shift to take you right back out. Coming over is probably one of the more useful things for storage options is the loadout mannequin. So not only does this double as a storage container, so if you access the back end of this, it's a 299 storage container, so you can put a lot of your weapons and armor in it. But you can actually load out this mannequin and everything inside of it. So let's say you do separate loadouts for if you're going to go taming, or if you're going to go to a hot environment or cold environment, or if you're going on resource harvesting, whatever it is. You can load this out exactly how you want it. And by simply hitting swap all, you can swap your current equipment over in your current inventory. So this what this will do for you is just pre-do all this stuff ahead of time. So that way, if you have multiple loadout mannequins nearby, you can customize them exactly how you need to. Come in, hit one button, walk back out with them. You'll be able to do that all right there. You can change some of the poses in here as well. So you can change poses kind of like how you do with the taxidermy. So you have all the options, you can access the inventory, you can swap everything inside of it, you can change the TBS evaluation time so it kind of works like a damage dummy on top of that. Survivor settings, you can actually take a dermis and do your own character over top of it, so it'll load like your actual character look over top of this, which is kind of cool. All in all, it's kind of like a dummy armor mannequin, weapon mannequin all mashed into one, but also at the very least makes for pretty good storage for your weapons and armor, which is kind of cool. What's next? Egg incubator. Does what you think it would do. It will incubate eggs down, and I believe that will hatch them for you too. Now, the one thing to pay attention to these things though is if you want it to hatch eggs for you, make sure this is underwater if you're working with underwater creatures. They're not gonna work unless they're underwater if you're working with underwater creatures. You don't want to get your stuff killed by accident. You can destroy the eggs too if you have the option. That is definitely an option as well. You can adjust the temperature, you can increase, lower it, whatever you want to do. It's pretty simple. Yeah. Pretty awesome. When you actually have the eggs in here, it'll have like a little monitoring thing to it as well. You'll be able to check everything in there, which is kind of nice. Yeah, the egg incubator, I think these two are probably going to be heavily used if you're not playing with mods. Obviously, if you're on console or if you're on PC with no mods, these two are going to be really useful. Honestly, most of the stuff. The camera, I think, is kind of cool, mainly if you make some sort of hidden base and have the cameras kind of stuck around the place. You could be able to use the cameras to kind of see intruders coming from a little ways out or whatever. Kind of nice. I like the concept. What else? That generator's really loud. I should have put like an SS mod in here just to simply make that a little quieter. but I didn't. So another form of ammunition is this jar of pitch, which you can use inside the catapult. What this does is just shoots a giant firebomb. You can make these, then make a giant firebomb and set the target on fire. These can actually be combined with the oil slick, so if you throw like the jar of oil from Scorched Earth out and hit it with that, it'll light that on fire as well. Does a lot of fire damage. Pretty cool. And you can craft the jar of pitch straight from the catapult in and of itself. So clay, fiber, hide, oil to make it, just where you would craft the normal boulders, and it chucks giant fire bombs, which is pretty fun. Kind of like that. Makes catapult a little bit more fun now. Before it was just boulders. Now we get to throw basically napalm all over the place, which it's pretty entertaining. Coming over to the tech crop plot. So the tech crop plot is a new crop plot that got added. You can just throw water and fertilizer in these as well. It doesn't appear, normally you have a problem when you put crop plots in caves and things. You might have some issues. Tech doesn't seem to care about any of that. You can still greenhouse it like normal. It looks like the inventory space is about the same. It might be a little bit bigger. No, it's 20. It's about the same. Yeah, tech crop plots, they have a cool little lights that you can actually, so you can actually paint these crop plots, and it'll change the lights of the crop plot as well. So even if you're not actually using them for growing crop plots, you can do some cool decorations. They'll grow all the crops like normal, but I figured while we was here, this would be a good time to talk about the plant species R. There's 5 different variants of these guys, and you'll find these inside Rockwell's innards when you find these small little, those little white balls that hang out down there. When you pick them up and get a little bit of the mutagel as well, you'll be able to maybe pick one of these seeds up. You can also possibly find these seeds from gathering the supply drops out and about. There's a couple different types of these, and while this technically isn't Engram, I figured we have the crop plot here, we might as well talk about them. So you have a couple there's 1 through 5, essentially. It's R-1 through 5. You grow these, and I know you're looking at them, you're thinking it's going to attack for you, especially if you're familiar with the turrets inside the innards. You're thinking that these things are going to whip things that come nearby. No, they're actually there to harvest stuff for you. Let me get a hatchet real quick to show you what I mean. You can harvest all different types of meats from these guys. So, for instance, the R1 gives me raw meat, and you can keep hitting this. You see how it has a health meter? I can keep whacking this thing until the health goes all the way down. It's not going to kill it. The only thing that'll happen is that it'll get the plant in and of itself will get really small, and then it'll have to take time to grow. So essentially infinite meat source as long as you keep it fertilized and watered. Over here is the R2, and the R2 gives us raw fish meat. Over here is the R3. R3 gives us spoiled meat. The R5, I got them, of course I have them out of order. Why wouldn't I have them out of order? The R5 gives you raw prime fish meat, and the R4 gives you raw prime meat. So you get the prime meat, spoiled meat, and the 2 regular meats out of this. Pretty awesome. It's kind of creepy though. When you hit them, they like turn and look at you, which is kind of weird, but they're not really going to do anything to you. They just look at you funny. Like I said, you can keep whacking these things till the health meter goes all the way down. When you do, it'll shrink and then eventually grow back up, and you can harvest it again. You're not going to kill the plant completely by doing any of that. But obviously, you can grow anything you want in these tech crop plots. It doesn't have to be just these tentacles. So that is pretty much the stuff that's buildable for the most part. We have some items to talk about too, and let's get into that real quick. So first off is an ammunition type that you're going to get, and that is the net gun ammunition. So let's take a look at it real quick. It's net projectiles. You make it in your inventory. It's fiber, metal, and polymer to make. And what will happen is you will use a harpoon gun to put this net in. This net will immobilize so many targets. It'll grip them down for about a minute, giving you plenty enough time to knock these guys out if you have the required materials to do so. This net gun works all the way up on, it won't work on a T-Rex, but essentially anything below that, it'll net gun, which is pretty funny. This also works in the water too, so you can net stuff and trap it and knock it out. Awesome for the aggressive dinos coming after you, but also good for the ones that passive flee, so you can track them down. Works great with birds, May-wings, all that good stuff. So net gun is your new and improved Ebola, essentially, is what we're looking at here. The tech pistol is an interesting one, right? So it doesn't really have an aim option. You have an alternate fire option, like what the aim button would be, changes in cycles. So the pistol runs off of element of fire. And the way it works, you have a heal, you have a kill, you have a stun. So the heal does what you think it would do. You target somebody, you hit this, it'll start healing them. So the other option is the kill option, and what we do is we sit here and hold the trigger over top of this, and it'll kill the dino outright when it's low level like this. But the other thing that it does is it ramps the damage up the longer you hold in the trigger. I had admin commands on, so these guys aren't going to attack me, but for science, let's go ahead and check this out. So what you'll see is that health, that skull start to build up, and the damage multiplier starts stacking. And it starts doing a crazy amount of damage very quickly. And granted, that was only a level 12 Bronto, but what you can see is this thing doing a lot of damage. Alright, lastly, we have the stun mode, and the only thing the stun mode does once this maxes out is slow the creature down for a certain amount of time. And then makes them completely immobile. You'll see the yellow haze over top of their head. So it's not going to knock them out, but it will keep them from moving. So you can use that to slow animals down, and especially ones that are chasing you. I feel like that'd be a pretty good option. This combined with like the net gun, making things pretty much immobile for however long you want to. But yeah, the cycle between the three is pretty interesting. Just remember that there's really no aim with this, because the aim button is essentially the switch between which variant of this pistol that you're using. Like I said, it does run element when it fires. You can find better versions of these that will do better damage and ramp up even higher. The pistol, I think, is a pretty good close quarters gun, honestly, but it doesn't seem to appear to be able to fire underwater, so you don't want to be taking this guy in the sea with you. Next up on the list, probably one of my favorite weapons so far, and I'm sure you guys probably love it if you've already used it, is the tech bow. So the tech bow kind of works like the pistol in the way that you can actually change the different modes of it. It works a little bit differently because you still have an aim option, and this guy will use element shard to fire. And what it'll do is actually use a bit more element shard depending on what you're firing. You have this metal arrow option, which will just do straight damage to things when you're firing them, and it's definitely, it acts and feels kind of like a compound bow does, the same sort of mechanic, but the damage is definitely higher for sure. You can aim, you can take the aim off, whatever you want. As you can see, damage is fairly decent for the most part. Pretty nasty. Alright, so second option is to hit the R key, and what will actually reload to an explosive arrow, which does an AoE attack when it hits the target. Anything nearby, roughly nearby, and it'll destroy, as you can see, it'll destroy rocks and stuff, trees and stuff like that too. I thought it destroyed rocks. No? Maybe not. They're just trees. Anyway. It does an AoE splash damage, but it doesn't look like it's like incredibly picky, as you can see. You almost have to hit the target and then it does the splash afterwards, so pay attention to that one for sure. Not quite as cool AoE. Looks like our turrets are killing something over there. Not good as an AoE like a rocket or grenade. You still pull it back like normal, hold it in, it'll start shaking. That's when you get the maximum effectiveness as far as damage goes too. Lastly, you have the trank arrow version of this too, which just does straight torpor damage. The sole purpose of this thing is to knock creatures out, and that is essentially it. And as we can see, it's fairly effective at it too. I mean, that's pretty good. So, I mean, I could see where combining something like the pistol and the bow would be kind of helpful maybe, but not necessarily, because you're not really going to be in the same range. The stun pistol definitely seems situational, maybe like a defense if you're trying to get out of somewhere sort of weapon. The bow, though, I gotta tell you, it's gonna be one of your mainstay weapons as soon as you get it, with element shard being fairly easy to get out here on this map. It's a pretty awesome weapon to have. The other option, with double tapping R, will change it from a projectile to an instant hit. So instant hit, it'll almost fire like a gun. And then if we double tap it to a projectile, you'll actually see the arrow fly a little bit better. So it's much more like, if you change the projectile, it's very much like shooting a compound bow. It has an arch to it, but if you change it to an instant hit, it's just going to fire like a bullet essentially. So depending on what you want, you can toggle between that by double tapping R, but then just single tapping R, single tapping your reload will be able to swap between the different ammo types. Again, probably my favorite thing out of this map, all these Engrams for this map in general. The tech bow is absolutely amazing. Toggling over to the minigun. I haven't yet played a video game where I didn't not enjoy having a minigun. So the minigun takes advanced rifle ammunition. It has a 300 round drum attached to the sucker, so reloading it will take a little bit of time. As you can see, you don't run quite as fast while you have this guy out. You do want this to be spinning up. You're holding in alternate fire where your aim is, and you see the circle tighten, and you can see this gun start to lay down. The blue circle going around turning to amber is about to let you know when the gun will overheat, so you do have to play that balancing act with it or it will overheat on you. It spits out a lot of rounds. It's just so much fun. There's a lot of rounds here. And the problem is it's advanced rifle ammo, so you could lose this fairly quickly. You could run out of ammo pretty easily. You're going to be spending a lot. If you like using this, you're going to spend a lot of time making rifle ammunition. Your third attack, which is mapped to my mouse button for me, will actually throw the turret out. And the cool thing about that is you can actually mount it from the ground, which is cool because the circle's already tightened for you, and there's no recoil. It pretty much goes just where you want it to go, with no real issue, which is pretty cool. You still have the overheat, and your sight, your up and down is definitely a little bit modified. You can't aim super high up on the ground, but you get extra stability for doing that, and then you can pop off of it, walk up to it, and you can pick it back up again if you want to go that route. So you do have the option to lay it down. Pretty good for if you're staging an ambush, actually. If you already know a good firing angle, I can see where this would be pretty useful. Personally, I'd rather just carry it, to be honest with you. I prefer having the mobility, especially with the tech suit, being able to move around with this stuff. Next up on the list, we're going to talk about the hover sail. Hover sail is something that you'll craft out of the tech replicator. And this is just an alternate method of travel. Sort of, kind of like the skiff, but definitely not as big. So you hover across the ground, and it hovers just above the ground with this guy. Is pretty much how it works. It will use element to power itself. Holding the shift key will give you a sprint option as well. And as you can see, when I run off the cliff, I kind of fall down, but you'll bounce back when you start hitting land and stuff like that too. Spacebar will allow you to do like a turbo boost mode and also lift you up, but you do have a timer down there that seems to clock down as you're using it. It seems though, while you're in the air, you're allowed to do these like cool little tricks, and what it does is it increases the timer of the boost while you're in the air. So if you need to cover more ground, you just do a couple cool little tricks while you're in the air, and that way you can do that. You can last a little bit longer when you're up in the air, which is kind of nice. This is super fast, a super easy way to get across the map to explore. It is a one-person, actually no, I think it's a two-person seater on this guy. There's a passenger seat as well. I dig it, and oddly enough, you can actually fire from this as well, which is pretty cool. I don't want to go out in K mode so you can see what I'm talking about. The sail goes down, and you're standing on it, and you can actually shoot from it as well. And once you holster your weapon back up, you go right back into the sail mode again, which is pretty cool. The one thing that I'm not a huge fan of, and I'm going to come over here maybe somewhere where we can land this real quick. You want to pay attention to where it's at when you land it, because it will self-destruct within an hour of you getting off of it. So if you're getting off of it, make sure that you pick it back up. Oh, that's my bandwing out here. What's up, buddy? You want to make sure that you pick this guy up when you do that, because if you don't, it'll destroy itself within an hour. So definitely pay attention to that. I mean, I dig it. I think it's a super easy way to get around. And again, it's super fast, and with a really wide open map like this tends to be, it's definitely very useful. The hover sail does have an inventory as well. As you can see, you can carry up to 1,500, so you can use that to store some things. So not a bad thing to use when you're out and about gathering resources. If you need to move a really fast distance very quickly, you could use this. You could team this up in combination with like the mining laser, because you can use stuff while you're still riding this guy, making that super easy for harvesting stuff. So we got two more things to talk about, one of which is going to require us to get down to the water, so let's go check that out. So the other Engram that we have is the Canoe. Canoe is a three-person rideable, just kind of a paddle boat sort of thing. You paddle it, you'll steer it, you can steer it, paddle it, move it around. You do have to kind of counter steer it a little bit sometimes depending, and it's not super fast when you're by yourself. The trick to this is realizing that you can have up to 3 people on here, and the more people you have on top of this rowing at the same time, the faster the canoe is actually going to be. Canoe does have an inventory space. It can carry up to 2,000, so you can throw all sorts of stuff in there. And also by completing certain missions, you'll get different canoe skins, like a tech canoe or like more of a modern canoe skin to put on top of this as well. You can pick these guys up as well. I have noticed sometimes, it doesn't happen very often, but sometimes when I leave render, these guys just flat out disappear. I don't know if that's a bug or if it's meant to do that because they're not being used within a certain time, kind of like the hover sail. But I would highly recommend picking these guys up if you're not going to use it. But it is cool. I mean, you can fish from this and you can hang out in here. It's pretty cool. But again, I mean, it's kind of slow, but having a team of 3 people makes this thing go a lot faster. And with more speed means you can actually cut the turns a little bit better with it too. I like the canoe out here. I'm not sure if the map was really good for it. I think we should have seen something like this when, I don't know, maybe Ragnarok came out. I just feel like with this map, it kind of pushes more towards the science fiction genre, so the canoe just feels a little out of place. When I can take a hover sail and fire across the water, I'm not sure. I don't know. It just seems like the end game tech materials, it's very easy to get in Gen 2, so I'm not sure why this was here now. But it is here, and it's fun, and it's definitely usable in other maps, I think. So, I mean, all in all, it's a cool looking boat. I'm not sure why it's on this map and we didn't see it earlier, to be honest with you. We are back, and that's pretty much it. The last but not least is the tech canteen. So the tech canteen works like a normal canteen. It can hold water, but it holds a lot more water. I think it's, yeah, it says it right there, actually. It holds 3 times the amount of water than the standard canteen. You can have this water cool you, or you can actually change the mode to heat you up instead of cool you down. So traditionally, normally when you're drinking water in this game, it cools you down. You can change that to be hot and actually warm you up instead and use it that way, which is pretty cool. Like the idea of being able to just turn it to hot and cold like that. You can refill it just like you would normally refill any canteen or water skin or whatever. But that is pretty much it. That's kind of a brief overview. And like I said, I know this is probably really late coming. Gen 2's been out for a little while now, but we had some other videos I wanted to make and get out first. So a little late to the party, but we're here and that's all that matters. But that's it, guys. That is the Genesis 2 Engram list. If you liked the video, please hit that like button, hit that sub button. Maybe leave a comment with your favorite Gen 2 Engram, which you like the best and why you like it. I didn't go into super detail with a lot of the stuff. I kind of just wanted to broadly go over, touch base with everything. So I'm sure there's things that I forgot to mention, and I apologize ahead of time for that. But as always, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. I will see you on the next one.